Continuing coverage of Ball State basketball here on Ball State All Access and BallStateSports.com. Joel Gadet joined by one of the newest Ball State men's basketball assistants. It's Brian Thornton. First off, welcome to Muncie.
I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Finally getting settled in, your feet on the ground, head stopped spinning.
Yeah, it takes a little time. Anytime you go through some transition, it takes a little time to get everything settled. But my wife and I finally got into our house. We're moved in, so now it's time to get down to business.
I want to talk a little bit about your experience and certainly your relationship with Coach Whitford as well, but you're not too unfamiliar with this area, and I want to start there. You went to Xavier, so you're kind of from the Cincinnati area. You're from Louisville before that, and we just talked to Coach Witt, I think a week ago, about the Indiana-Kentucky High School All-Star game with Jeremy Tyler and Sean Sellers, and that's a game that you actually played in as well back in the day. So this is certainly an area of the country that is very much home to you.
Yeah, it is certainly home. The Midwest is a place where obviously I grew up, played basketball at Xavier, grew up in Louisville. In fact, my dad lives in Carmel, so that's only 45 minutes away. So getting back to this area of the country was something that was extremely exciting. Obviously, the Indiana All-Stars thing it's a tremendous deal. I know how important it is for Indiana guys to be part of that team, and I was fortunate enough to be a Kentucky All-Star when I was graduating high school. And a fun fact, both of my sisters were on the Indiana All-Star team when they were high school players, so it's definitely something that means a lot.
What's the Thornton family record in those games?
I personally was 1-1. I think both of my sisters are 2-0. Indiana's been pretty strong the last several years, so they have a little bit more bragging rights.
Let's talk a little bit about your playing history first, and then we'll go into the coaching ranks. But you played in two different schools, Vanderbilt, and then transferred to Xavier, where you met Sean Miller and James Whitford, and got involved in, I guess, what would become your coaching tree as well. What was it like playing for those guys and being part of that program on that side?
Xavier is one of the top 25 programs in the country. It was a tremendous experience, like being able to play at a place like Xavier, which is a little bit off the beaten path in terms of notoriety, at least it was maybe 10, 15 years ago, but kind of being part of that foundation to what Xavier has become today, which is, borderline perennial power. And Coach Miller, Coach Whitford, and Coach Mack, those guys that, I'm close to and quote-unquote part of that coaching tree, tremendous experience and guys I still keep in touch with to this day.
What's it like to play for Coach Witt back in that time?
Coach Witt, obviously, just like all of us, he's grown a lot as well. When he came to Xavier, it was my senior year. He had just spent a ton of time at Miami of Ohio, and he came over to Xavier. Obviously, he brought an element to Xavier that we appreciated, and I think that he helped me get better as a player. But also, one of the main reasons I'm here and something that I learned about him from playing for him when he was an assistant is his genuineness and the kind of guy he is. And he's a guy that I've always known to really care about the guys that he coaches and the people that he works with.
Went into college coaching after your time at Xavier. My question for you is this, though. Academic All-American in your playing days. You have an MBA. What are you doing coaching basketball?
That's a good question. For me, basketball was kind of taken away from me a little bit earlier than maybe I would have liked. My senior year, I broke my leg, and, the aspirations of playing in the NBA and stuff were kind of dashed at that time. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to play professionally overseas and kind of check that box and say that I did it, which was a tremendous experience. But from that standpoint, when I came back here, finished my MBA, wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. Went into the corporate world for a little while, but then decided, it's time for me to kind of give back a little bit of what people gave me from a basketball standpoint. And, that's what I've, tried to do for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've enjoyed it so far.
Let's talk about your coaching career, Furman, and then most recently at Winthrop as well. Take me on that journey. Take me on what you've learned and what it's been like as you've grown in this profession.
When I was working corporately, actually in Indianapolis, Coach Mack called me and asked me if I wanted to join his staff at Xavier when Coach Miller went to Arizona. It was obviously a great opportunity, chance to go back to my alma mater, get into coaching, and kind of test it out to see if it was something I would enjoy. After doing that for 2 years, it was a great deal. We went to the Sweet 16. We won a ton of games. But I was ready for an additional role, and that's why I went to Furman. I knew the head coach. He was actually an assistant at Vanderbilt when I played there, so we'd had a long-standing relationship, similar to my relationship with Coach Whitford. So everywhere I've gone somewhere where I've known the head coach and felt comfortable with the system and the things that were in place.
Brian, really appreciate the time. welcome again to Muncie. Glad to have you here, and best of luck going forward into the fall and winter months.
I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Brian Thornton is one of the 2 new Ball State men's basketball assistant coaches. We'll get to know Danny Peters as well, the newest addition to James Whitford's staff, with continuing coverage of Ball State men's basketball here on Ball State All Access and ballstatesports.com.